And when last we left off, we talked about the pump and dump, which is a term for artificially inflating the price of a stock and then dumping the stock onto the market. When it becomes fraudulent is when this artificial price increase or artificial value becomes known and the stock becomes worthless at that point. So let's look at some other corporate crimes. Now, sometimes organizations or corporations perpetrate crime against people. And this can often come in the form of things such as price fixing. And this is where a number of companies, usually in the same line of business, all get together and agree that they're going to sell a commodity for a certain price. And we saw that a lot in the mid-70s with the Arab oil embargo. And this is where the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, which was mostly Persian Gulf countries, had all decided that they were going to either limit production or fix the price of a particular barrel of crude oil. And so this resulted in higher gasoline prices and greater profits to the OPEC countries. There's also things such as kickbacks, where a person can only, or one company can only do business with another company if they agree to send a certain percentage of money back to the original contractor. Commercial bribery, we've talked a little bit about that already. Sometimes there are companies that are out bribing government officials, and in other cases it may be private industry bribing another private industry to do one thing that they wouldn't normally do. Environmental crime and corporate dumping are also various corporate crimes that occur by the corporation. You may have a company that is in the waste disposal or waste management business, and they may take in somebody's waste at a much lower price or offer a kickback, but at the same time they're not properly disposing of the waste, and it ends up becoming a crime against the environment as well as a corporate crime. And there are plenty of places that do it. There's plenty of businesses that engage in it, and plenty of companies that actually provide the service. Okay, so that brings us to another form of corporate crime, and that is crimes by organizations against employees. The most not just the most problematic, but certainly the most common means is to violate the Occupational Safety and Health Act. And a lot of this happens to do with things such as right to know, knowing what hazards are in one's environment, and providing adequate safety equipment to protect against those hazards. And probably one of the most common and ongoing things involves mesothelioma. This is a form of cancer that is predominantly spread through asbestos exposure. And there's actually quite a cottage industry of attorneys who are litigating for mesothelioma victims, because oftentimes these people who are involved in the building trades, in auto mechanics, things of that nature, were exposed but had no idea they were exposed, or were exposed but was not provided adequate safety equipment. And as a result, now they have cancer, which will probably turn out to be fatal. And many times these victims are seeking civil redress. There's also whistleblowers, and these are people who report wrongdoing perpetrated by their employers. And if you've ever seen the movie Silkwood with Cher, that's an example of one whistleblowing case involving the nuclear industry. Some other forms of corporate crime are, of course, crimes by organizations against other organizations. And these can be things, for example, wartime trade violations. Many times this still goes on, even in a relatively peaceful situation. We have in this country a list of items that cannot be exported to other countries. And it's because these items can either be readily converted to, or pretty much are, weapons of war. And what some people have been known to do is they've been known to come up with ways around wartime trade violations, where they'll send it to a third country, which isn't listed as a no-sell country. So that's one form of crime. Another form of crime, of course, cheating on government contracts. As I mentioned in class, cheating on government contracts has been with us since the Revolutionary War. And so as a result, we have a rather robust fraud investigation unit within Army CID, as well as other government agencies. Income tax violations, that's probably been occurring for about as long as income taxes have been collected. Industrial espionage goes on even amongst our friendly countries. It's not just the Soviet Union, but China's been engaging in it. France has been engaging in it. Several countries have been engaging in it, and it's not just international. It sometimes occurs among other competitors, and this can take on a number of forms. And of course, illegal competitive practices, violations of the Sherman Antitrust Act, and so forth can also be considered part of corporate crime. Now, Sutherland has identified a number of parallels between corporate criminals and professional and organized criminals. And if you look at it, Sutherland is largely correct in that most of these people are repeat offenders or recidivists, and they commit violations frequently. And the violations are very much widespread, and are very rarely prosecuted. As I mentioned before, there is a hesitancy amongst state law enforcement and state prosecutorial authorities to take any white-collar cases, simply because it is difficult at best to get a criminal jury to return a verdict of guilty. They're very complex, and getting jurors to come back with a guilty verdict is difficult at best. With that said, the offenders still maintain status among their peers. Look no further than Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart went away for insider trading. She actually did time in a federal prison, but obviously it hasn't hurted her career one bit. And so as a result, the perpetrators often have contempt for regulators, officials, or other laws. And so they'll keep doing it over and over and over again. Society's reaction. Lately, the reaction of society has been against the perpetrators. Society has often regarded white-collar crime as being a big, dirty secret. And that big, dirty secret is that oftentimes they're soft on crime. Again, the reality is it's very difficult to get a jury to return a verdict of guilty in white-collar crime. And so as a result, society pays for crime in terms of higher prices. Now, that there have been some rather large-scale developments, such as Enron, MCI, WorldCom, and so forth, there's been more of a social call for much higher treatment, especially when we find out that many times these people are treated rather leniently. But are they? With that, let's take a look at another so-called Club Fed. Okay, actually we're going to show that a little bit later. We're going to show that in our next segment. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you another reaction, and that is the Sarbanes-Oxley Act.
In late 2001, people began to notice some accounting irregularities with a large publicly traded company. The company had a national reputation for consistency in both good times and bad, so it was considered a blue-chip stock. The name of this company was Enron. Within weeks, the stock went from over $90 a share to being nearly worthless. This occurred because the management team tried to cover up losses from the previous years by altering their financial statements. The deception that occurred gave the public a reality check, and in effect, investors started taking a look into the financial records of other large corporations. The Sarbanes-Oxley Act was introduced into Congress by U.S. Senator Paul Sarbanes of Maryland and U.S. Representative Michael Oxley of Ohio. Their intention was to create a law which would restore the faith of investors back into corporate America. By imposing stricter standards on financial reporting, there would be an increase in the reliability of the financial statements created by any given company. Let's take a deeper look at what the Sarbanes-Oxley Act includes. First, officers of the company are required to sign financial statements for accuracy. This holds them personally accountable for any misrepresented data. Second, an increased fine and/or prison sentence is set for individuals who attempt to defraud investors and misrepresent actual figures. Third, the company must provide a description of its internal controls. This is an attempt to increase the confidence of the public in that organization, while allowing them to gain an insight into the company's procedures. Fourth, the company is responsible for hiring an independent accounting firm to come in and audit the accuracy of their financial reports. The financial reports are now required to have a section dedicated to the auditor's opinion as to the accuracy of the figures presented in the reports. Fifth, the company is now mandated to report all off-balance sheet transactions on their reports. Finally, the Securities and Exchange Commission is given more power to look into companies that are suspected of wrongdoing. The SEC will now do random reviews of companies to ensure that they are complying with the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. The reports are then published and released to the public review. The SEC has a special division that is designated to work with Sarbanes-Oxley issues. This division is called the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board. I hope this video helped to educate you in the world of Sarbanes.